And we are live. It's Dr. J in the house. How are y'all doing today? My new thyroid book that I've been working on for years, the Thyroid Reboot, is finally out. Again, we have a discounted price here for the first week. So if you want to support me in the book sales, thyroidreboot.com. We'll bring you to the Amazon page, thyroidreboot.com. Take a look. We got the digital copy at pretty cheap, $1.99 or a 350-page book that I put a lot of effort and work into. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to give you a little sneak preview, a couple of concepts, look at a study here today, and we'll break it down and give you guys some actionable information. A lot of this information is layered throughout the book. I want to give you guys actionable info if you have a thyroid issue, if there's an autoimmune component to your thyroid, which again, most thyroid issues tend to have this autoimmunity where your immune system is attacking the thyroid tissue. And there's a lot of other connections to healthy thyroid function. In the book, we talk about insulin resistance, cortisol and adrenal fluctuations, hormone imbalances like estrogen dominance, low progesterone, low DHEA, low anabolic hormones like low testosterone. We talk about gut function, gut dysfunction, leaky gut or gut barrier permeability. We talk about toxicity, mold, heavy metals, and a lot of the other stressors and nutrients that are really important for thyroid function. So again, you typically go to your conventional MD, primary, maybe you get referred out to an endo. The first thing that usually comes is you have maybe elevated TSH. The problem with that kind of marker or reading, you probably had that for a long time. You probably had a lot of low thyroid symptoms for 5 to 10 years. It's probably been happening a long time in the background. And then so what do you do about it? Typically, conventional medicine is just going to get that TSH down by giving you some levothyroxine or some Synthroid. They may palpate that thyroid, make sure it doesn't feel boggy or noduly. They may do an ultrasound on that. But in general, they tend to avoid looking at any of the autoimmune component to it because there's not really a medication that's suitable with the side effects that most autoimmune meds have that's going to treat that thyroid issue without the additional side effects. And so they tend to leave it alone. They don't really get to the underlying root cause of it. Their goal is just to get that TSH looking nice and pretty, get it at least below 3, and they're usually pretty happy. And there may be some downstream hormonal issues that aren't quite right. The T4 may not be adequate in that 1 to 1.5 range. That T3 may not be above 3. We may still have a lot of antibodies. We still may have a lot of inflammation. We still may have some elevated reverse T3. Maybe there's a whole bunch of nutrients still not in the right place from a function standpoint. But again, it's really difficult when you're operating in the conventional medical model and you're seeing a doctor for 3 to 5 minutes and their paradigm is drug symptom kind of allocation and addressing that. You're not going to get the deeper things, right? That's where a functional medicine person comes in. So again, take a look, thyroidreboot.com. That's my book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me dive into an article that I saw recently. I think I even referenced it in the book. It's a 2020 journal article from the Scientific Journal of Nutrients. Fascinating read. I'll just kind of give you a couple of the big take-home things. So I made some notes on it, but I just want to highlight the first page here, the summary, the abstract. So first off, thyroid and intestinal disease exist. This is a real thing. So healthy microbiome. So the article is Thyroid Gut Access. How does microbiota, your microbiome, influence thyroid function? This is important because in conventional medicine, you tend to see your specialist for that body part. And so you see the endocrinologist, they don't connect to the gut. Or when you see the gastro doctor, they don't connect it to the nervous system or the neurology or the brain. Or if you see, you may not see the joint doctor, right? The rheumatologist or the orthopedic because your joints are inflamed or because you're fatigued, right? And so each specialty is kind of siloed, yet the imbalances tend to be upstream in these different systems: hormone, gut, detox, immune, neurological, right? Brain, central nervous system. And they're all connected, but conventional medicine silos each specialty in and of itself. And none of them really talk to each other, and none of them look at the collateral damage that happens. So this is interesting because this is kind of connecting the dots a little bit. So it talks about celiac disease and how that is connected. This is the most common autoimmune thyroid disease. And again, you may not have celiac, where you have that full microvilli dysfunction. You may have gluten sensitivity, which is maybe a more subtlety. You still have sensitivity from an immune standpoint, but you're not getting the neurological or the microvilli damage, but you're still having an immune response. You're still having, look at this, damage to the intestinal barrier, right? This is the increasing intestinal permeability. So people talk about leaky gut. That's what this is. Now, if you go to your conventional medical doctor and you say, hey, leaky gut, they're going to just laugh at you. But just know it's talked about in the scientific literature, and you can refer to it as intestinal barrier or intestinal barrier permeability. And what's happening here? It's allowing antigens to pass easily, and it activates the immune system. And then you can have cross reactivity. That means other tissues look similar to certain foods. So this is like the APB called up by the police because someone in a black Honda Civic committed a crime. Well, if you were on the highway in that black Honda Civic at that same time, you may get pulled over. It's the same thing. Your immune system does the same thing. And this is a very well-written abstract. It's very like succinct, and it's not written overly sciencey. Dysbiosis has not only been found in autoimmune thyroid disease, but it's been reported in thyroid carcinomas, right? When you have a thyroid cancer, your chance of autoimmunity, increasing that cancer, is very high. Not saying you treat the cancer, but what I'm saying is if you have autoimmune thyroid and it goes left unaddressed, the inflammation and the autoimmune issue goes left unaddressed, your chance of cancer goes up and up and up. And so the more we can be on top of the autoimmunity and the inflammation and what your thyroid needs, the better off you'll be. Let me keep on rolling through here. So dysbiosis has not only been found, which increases the number of carcinogenic inflammatory bacterial strains. Additionally, the composition of the gut microbiome has influence on the availability of different nutrients: iodine, thyroid, copper. So let me go over my notes here. I went through a notes here just to kind of review it all to make more sense of it. I'll kind of crystallize it for you guys. I think it'll make sense of it here. I'll pull up my Word article here. You guys will like this. Boom, boom, boom. Here you go. All right, cool. So big overview here. We talked about in this article, dietary patterns shape the microbiome, right? If we don't have a healthy microbiome, guess what? T4, T3 synthesis, that's your inactive. T4 to T3 is your 3 to 100% more active, is going to be impaired. Why is that? You have different bacteria in the gut that make enzymes. Healthy bacteria like the sulfatase or acetic acid bacteria help convert 20% of your inactive thyroid to active. So healthy gut bacteria produces different enzymes that allows for optimal thyroid conversion. Next, different nutrients. That article I mentioned earlier, we kind of just talked about it a little bit. Iodine's a double-edged sword. You have to be careful with iodine because it can flare up autoimmunity. There are a lot of doctors out there that will use iodine hundreds of times above the reference range, so you have to be careful. If you have active autoimmune thyroid issues and inflammation, I always say make iodine the last thing you are using. If you want to get within the RDA or DRI within 150 to 300 or so micrograms, I think that's fine. But the big thing is you want to make sure all the other nutrients and cofactors are present. My hypothesis is a lot of people have an association of iodine being connected to the thyroid. And so they may be very inflamed. They have lots of inflammation. They have autoimmunity. Their diet's really poor. They don't have all the other nutrients lined up for healthy thyroid function. And they start megadosing iodine, and that can increase an autoimmune attack. I've seen it. So you got to be very careful. The literature is ripe with it. So there's literature of iodine being the number one cause of autoimmunity in different Asian articles and journals, right? And so it's like, okay, well, we know that's a thing, but then there's all kinds of articles. If you're in the Goiter Belt, right? You're in that Michigan, New York, kind of that Midwest-ish area, that Goiter Belt, and you have soils around you that are very low in iodine. Well, that can also drive low thyroid issues and create a goiter. It's typically not autoimmune per se. You're just missing the cofactors to synthesize iodine. You need about 150 to 250 micrograms of iodine to make thyroid hormone. Some will say it needs to be much higher. That's a low kind of disease level. And I get that. And so maybe it's between 150 micrograms to 1.5 milligrams. My concern is if someone's very inflamed, throwing a bunch of iodine, especially if you haven't gotten the inflammation down and you haven't dialed in all of these important cofactors right here: iron, zinc, copper, magnesium, vitamin A, B12. These are all very important cofactors to make optimal thyroid hormone. So we always want to make sure we dial things in. So if you have an autoimmune thyroid issue, you want to find a good functional medicine doctor you can work with that can make sure you set the table and have a good foundation, get the inflammation down, work on insulin resistance, work on any anemias. Anemias could be from low iron. Low iron can be from poor hydrochloric acid, enzymes, vegan, vegetarian diet, crummy digestion, right? Crummy absorption because of infections. Or you could be a female and you have estrogen dominance and imbalance in sex hormones, and you're just very much having a heavy menstrual cycle every time you menstruate for 4 to 7 days. It could be just very heavy and you're losing it that way. So it can be a whole bunch of underlying root causes. That's why conventional medicine has a hard time wrapping their head around functional medicine because they want to put everything in a box. Oh, you have this, do this. But in functional medicine, it's if and or what, right? It's like, well, if that, but then this or that. And then so there's a lot of different multivariable analysis that has to be done where you're looking at diet, blood sugar, inflammation, cortisol. You're looking at, are you estrogen dominant? Do you have a heavy period? What's your sleep like? What's the emotional stress like? Are you overexercised? And there's so many multivariables that have to be looked at. And the double-blind placebo-controlled study that conventional medicine relies on, it needs to isolate variables. It can't have 10 variables because then you won't know which one's which. And that's where functional medicine has a hard time because it doesn't quite fit into that peer review research model. All right, so gut dysbiosis and autoimmune thyroid risk. So leaky gut, this is in that first page of the abstract, that gut permeability allows those antigens into circulation, and that triggers an autoimmune response. So we know things like gluten and dairy can increase it. The amino acids on gluten look very similar to the thyroid tissue. Your immune system tags it, and then boom, collateral damage happens. Now we talk about nutrients. So different deficiencies, iodine overload, got to be careful of that. That can drive hypo or hyperthyroid states and contribute to inflammation. And it could potentially increase your risk of cancer too. Got to be careful of that. A lot of good doctors out there. I could think of people's names right now who love iodine. Dr. Abraham is one, I think. Dr. Brownstein's one who've had good clinical results. And again, I think you can have good clinical results. It's all about timing. It's all about dose. And do you set the table and the foundation for all the other things to work better? I think there's enough data on it for me to always be kind of more in that in between and limit super physiological levels of iodine, at least initially, for sure. And then I try to stay within the 150 to 1500 milligram to, or sorry, 1.5 milligram to 1500 microgram kind of level, or to 150 microgram level. So we'll use micrograms, 150 micrograms to 1500 micrograms. All right. Hope that makes sense. But again, other nutrients have to be looked at. And again, different dietary strategies, right? What should be done here? Again, probiotics, prebiotics, having good, healthy digestion. The problem is a lot of these things down here that I'm mentioning with pre and probiotics can make people really bloated, really gassy, and jack up their motility. So context is very important because if we don't have the gut and digestion and motility working, a lot of times this can make things worse. And this is where functional medicine comes in, where you have to test someone. You have to look at the patient as an individual. Where's your diet at? How can we get your gut and digestion better? And then we can work on adding these foods in. Because even though we think of them as healthy, having been around 15 plus years, 5,000 plus patients, I've seen these foods make people very sick and create lots of bloating and gas, even though they're very healthy. So it's frustrating because it's not that black and white answer that people want to hear. But I think it can be important once you've dealt with the 6 R's. You've got all the inflammatory foods better. That's the first R. You remove the bad foods. The second R is you replace the enzymes and acids, maybe bile support. And we're also supporting healthy motility. We're making sure we're evacuating at least 12 inches of stool a day. We're supporting that migrating motor complex. If we can't handle acid, we're doing other things to support that migrating motor complex. Third, we're working on repairing the gut lining if there's inflammation. If we have gastritis, if we see elevations in certain inflammatory proteins on stool testing, we're going to support gut inflammation. Remember, 80% of the immune system is in the gut. So the more inflamed the gut is, the more the immune cells become activated, and it just drags. I call it immune drag. It's sucking down your immune activation. Instead of going after bugs and microbes, it's going after and being activated by the inflammation in your gut. The same thing when you have allergies. Why is your immune system so focus on the dander outside? It's not going to kill you, right? Let's worry about the actual real things that are out there. Same thing in your gut. And then the fourth R, we work on bugs. That's where we work on killing the bugs. It's a typical natural reaction for most people, my opinion, because we live in an antibiotic crazed kind of culture where kill. There's a reason why the removal R, the second removal, the first removal is removing the bad foods. The fourth R is the second remove. That's where we remove the bugs, but that's a stressor. We have to line up everything before that so it works better, right? Because it's actually hard on the body and it can be hard on the immune system. And a lot of these microbes produce a lot of toxins like lipopolysaccharide and endotoxin that can stress out the immune system. And you can also disrupt motility and create die-off. Fifth R, we work on repopulation, re-inoculation. This is where we like to add in probiotics, potentially add in prebiotics. So we may work on adding in immunoglobulins. We may look at Akkermansia, which I kind of put into that same probiotic camp. I see a lot of people with low Akkermansia, and Akkermansia is a mucinophilic bacteria, very anti-inflammatory. You can support it naturally with like polyphenols and grapes and avocados and things like that, but we may want to supplement it just to get it up higher to help the gut produce healthy levels of mucin, which is very protective, and also reduce inflammation. And that's where we retest. We want to make sure we actually fix whatever's going on in the gut to ensure it's gone. We don't want to work that hard and put all that energy into this and then not get the underlying things that are stressing the body out and leave. And we want to make sure they're out. We don't want to leave them in. So again, Thyroid Reboot, it's out. Take a look, thyroidreboot.com. I appreciate you guys taking a look at it. I just wanted to add and just look at one element today. That was the gut-immune connection, the gut-immune-thyroid axis. It's talked about in my book. There aren't a lot of books out there that weave all of the different systems in. There's some good ones I can think of, but I've gone through a lot of them, and I just looked at it and said, how can I make my book better, a better read and more concise and more user-friendly? Because some of these topics they're overwhelming, and I want to make it more concise so people can take action on it. So if you guys enjoy it, let me know. Link down below, Thyroid Reboot. And if you want more support from me on the functional medicine side with my staff or team, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out worldwide to get that good functional medicine support if you want to get to the root cause of what's happening. See, any questions from you guys? Thanks a lot for the book release. I appreciate that. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll take a look at the comments. Happy to answer them. And I'll be trying to do a live video every day for the next week or so where we just talk about an aspect of thyroid health and a part of the book, an area of the book that I went into on thyroid, and we'll just break it down and do a little video and a little chalk talk on it. All right, guys, if you enjoyed, thumbs up, comments down below. I'd love to see it. Have a good one. Take care, y'all.